Grand evening. I am Kanye Shobe with AMPACT, Allodium Moorish Paradium, Ante Colorado, a state provincial government within the Moroccan Empire. As you already know, we have been talking about a lot of declarations as well as a lot of treaties. We're going to continue to follow that up today with the 1796 Treaty of Tripoli. Why are we staying on treaties? Because treaties are the supreme law of the land.
Wrong.
And we want to let you know about the colonization that's happening today, because the colonizers, have been in a contract with us for as long as we can remember. And the treaties tells the truth. So right now, we're going to go over the Treaty of Tripoli. It's not a long treaty. It's 12 articles. It's a great read. But this will let you know about the contract between the United States of America and, once again, Morocco. So we'll start with the read really quick here. As you can see here, Treaty of Tripoli, 1796. It's going to speak about the Beys, and it's going to talk about the Deys. What are the 5 national names that we're supposed to have? Al, Ali, Bey, Dey, and Il. It talks about the Beys and the Deys throughout this treaty. Once again, telling you the truth. So the Treaty of Tripoli, treaty of peace and friendship between the United States and the Bey and subjects of Tripoli of Barbary, 1796. Article 1, there is a firm and perpetual peace and friendship between the United States of America and the Bey and the subjects of Tripoli of Barbary, made by the free consent of both parties and guaranteed by the most potent Dey and Regency of Algiers. Right off in Article 1, is telling the truth. When the colonizers of today say, we don't know about the Moors, why are they calling themselves Beys? Why are they calling themselves Deys? Why are they calling themselves Ils? This treaty points out they know exactly who you are.
Excuse me, sir, but I must interject. Okay, so the treaty is talking about the Beys and the Deys. Now, we know that here in America, Moorish Americans have chosen the appellation of Bey and Dey. Now, what this Moorish American is trying to say here is that the Treaty of Tripoli, when it mentions Beys and Deys, they're talking about Moors and Moorish Americans, which is 100% incorrect. He is misinterpreting this treaty on purpose to give Moorish Americans some type of foundation and something to uplift them. That is not how you teach someone, by miseducating them. Now, this treaty is not talking about Moorish Americans. Just because Moorish Americans have co-opted the names Bey and Dey and Ali does not mean that this treaty is talking about Moors or Moorish Americans. This is one of the main reasons I speak up against Moorish Americans and their teachings, because when you have a new person seeking this information, if they came across this man's video, they will be like, oh, wow, that treaty is talking about us. So that means we're royalty, and now I don't have to pay taxes, and I can drive, well, I can travel without a license. I'm a free man on the land. You get all these type of false sense of entitlements because people like this man are lying and misrepresenting history. Just because in this treaty you see the name Bey and Dey does not mean that they're talking about Moorish Americans. Moorish Americans co-opted the names Bey and Dey, and they now try to conflate and confuse true history with real history. So you know what? Let's take a look at who the Beys and Deys really were. I'm going to give you a little spoiler. The name Bey and Dey, they are governmental titles in the Ottoman Empire. Nothing more. It wasn't like there was 100 Beys running around and 100 Deys running around, just like how these Moorish Americans. You could have 100 Beys over here and 100 Deys. That's not how it was. The Beys and the Deys were governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. It wasn't a last name for a person, and it wasn't an appellation. It was a title. It was a job. So this man is misrepresenting the information that he's reading. So let's take a look at who the Beys and the Deys really were. Okay, so now we just saw who the Deys were. As you can see, the Deys were nothing other than a title within the Ottoman Empire. You just saw one article said that there were 29 days between X and O date. So unlike these Moorish Americans out here who are naming themselves Deys, that's not what this treaty that he is reading is talking about. Deys was a governmental title within the Ottoman Empire. A Dey was also a commander in the military, another governmental title. So it wasn't like there were people just running around calling themselves Deys. It was pretty much a job. It was a job within, it was the title of a job that you get within the Ottoman Empire. So now let's take a look at who the Beys were. Okay, so now we just saw pretty much who the Beys were. The Beys was pretty much a title among Turkish people traditionally given to rulers of small tribal groups. And pretty much that title Bey was a governor's title. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because this man is miseducating, trying to act as if when you hear Beys and Deys in this treaty, it's talking about Moors or Moorish Americans. No, that's not what it was. The Beys and the Deys are governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. Now you might say, hey, well, the Bey one, it said small tribal groups. How we know that the tribes that they're speaking of weren't African tribes or Moorish tribes? No, they weren't. Because when the Ottoman Empire took slaves, they made the slaves eunuchs. Now we'll get into the eunuchs in a second. So we can't say that the Beys were the tribal groups. No, because the Africans that were under the Ottoman Empire hated them. They turned them into eunuchs. So now me showing this gives a little more context to what is being spoken of when this man is going to finish reading this treaty. So you get the true grasp of who the Beys and the Deys are being referred to within this title, because this Moorish American that's reading this, he is about to misrepresent who these Beys and Deys are and try to act as if the Beys and Deys being spoken of in the treaty are Moors and Moorish Americans, because Moorish Americans run around with their titles or appellations as Bey and Dey. No, that's just confused Americans who co-opted names from a Turkish empire, and the Turks actually hated people like them. They turned people like them into eunuchs. Now, this Treaty of Tripoli that this Moorish American is reading is a treaty coming from the Ottoman Empire. So, pretty much, here are the titles in the Ottoman Empire. Sultan equals a king. Dey equals Secretary of Defense. Pasha equals military rank. Bey equals governor. Janissary equals soldier, and eunuchs equals slaves. Now, as you can see, the eunuchs are at the bottom of the totem pole. Now, the eunuchs were the African slaves that the Ottoman Empire had. So, let's get into who the eunuchs were and what they looked like. In the Ottoman Empire, eunuchs were typically slaves imported from the outside of their domains. Now, this man on the screen was a eunuch in the Ottoman Empire. Do you notice his headdress? He has on a fez. These Moorish Americans don't even realize that they're wearing the hat of their oppressor. Everything about Moorish Americans' existence, all the way down to their headdress, the fez, is absolutely ridiculous. Moorish Americans don't even realize the headdress that they have on is the hat of their oppressors, the Ottoman Turks. The fez is a Turkish headdress. Okay, so now that I've cleared up a few things of who the Beys were and who the Deys were, we can get back into this Moorish Americans presentation, and now you will really be able to see the manipulation that is taking place. And you will really be able to see how he is miseducating the people he claims to be educating. And you will also now can get a little bit into the psyche of why Moorish Americans are so lost. They're running around with these names and don't even really know where the names come from. And then they hear people like this guy come and make these presentations, and they get all gassed up and happy, like, oh yes, these treaties were talking about us. Yes, we're nobles. We don't need to pay taxes, and I'm a free man on the land. Now you can see why they are the way they are. So without further ado, let's get back into this Moorish Americans presentation, and let's see how he further miseducates people.
When the colonizers of today say, we don't know about the Moors, why are they calling themselves Beys? Why are they calling themselves Deys? Why are they calling themselves Eels? This treaty points out they know exactly who you are. Article 2. If any goods belonging to any nation with which either of the parties is at war shall be loaded on board of vessels belonging to the other party, they shall pass free, and no attempt shall be made to take or detain them. Article 3, Moors. If any citizens, subjects, or effects belonging to either party shall be found on board of a prize vessel taken from an enemy by the other party, such citizens or subjects shall be set at liberty and the effects restored to the owners. We cannot capture them, and they cannot capture us. Article 4. Proper passports are to be given to all vessels of both parties, by which they are to be known. And considering the distance between the two countries, 18 months from the date of this treaty shall be allowed to procuring such passports. During this interval, the other papers belonging to such vessels shall be sufficient for their protections. Article 5. A citizen or subject of either party having brought a prize vessel condemned by the other party or by any other nation, once again, they're talking about nations, their certificates of condemnation and bill of sale shall be sufficient passports for such vessels for 1 year. This being a reasonable time for her to procure a proper passport. So they're giving, through a friendship, you give each other time to get the proper paperwork that's needed. Article 6. Vessels of either party putting into the ports of the other and having need of provisions of other supplies shall be furnished at the market price. And if any such vessel shall so be put in from a disaster or at sea, and have occasion to repair, she shall be at liberty to land and re-embark her cargo without paying any duties, but in case shall be compelled to the land her cargo. Article 7. Should a vessel of either party be at cast on the shore of the other, all proper assistance shall be given to her and her people. No pillage shall be allowed. The property shall remain at the disposition of the owners, and the crew protected and secured till they can be sent to their country. We shall not take from them, and they shall not take from us. Article 8 is a vessel. If a vessel of either party should be attacked by an enemy within gunshot of the forts of the other, she shall be defended as much as possible. So if someone was to attack the Moors per this treaty, they must defend us, and vice versa. If she be in port, she shall not be seized or attacked when it is in the power of the other party to protect her, and when she proceeds to the sea, no enemy shall be allowed to pursue her from the same port within 24 hours after her departure. Article 9. The commerce between the United States and Tripoli. The protections to be given to the merchants, masters of the vessels, and seamen. The reciprocal right of establishing consuls in each country. And the privileges, immunities, and jurisdiction to be on the same footing with those most favored nations, respectively. Article 10. The money and presents demanded by the Bey of Tripoli. See, there it goes again, the Beys. But they say that we are domestic terrorists. But they wrote a treaty and signed off on a treaty which is validating our names.
Now, you see how he's misrepresenting the information? Talking about they signed a treaty with our names. Nobody. Stop lying to the people. The Beys was nothing other than a governor in the Ottoman Empire. It wasn't a bunch of Africans running around with that name. That is not who it is referring to. It is referring to the governor of the Ottoman Empire. Stop misrepresenting the information. You are doing your people a disservice by doing that, sir.
The money and presents demanded by the Bey of Tripoli. See, there it goes again, the Beys. But they say that we are domestic terrorists. But they wrote a treaty and signed off on a treaty which is validating our names. They know who the Beys are. They know who the Deys are. But they don't have to validate you if you're up under artificial status of black. As a full and satisfactory consideration on his part and on the part of his subjects for this treaty of perpetual peace and friendship are acknowledged to have been received by him previous to his signing the same, according to a receipt which is hereto annexed, except such as part as is promised on the part of the United States to be delivered, paid by them on the arrival of their consul. Once again, go that word again, consul in Tripoli. Consul General, Mufti, Consul General. These titles are in the treaties. These titles are valid as long as you have a nation. Of which part a note is likewise hereto annexed, and no pretense of any periodical tribute or further payments is ever to be made by either party. Article 11. As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility, or Muslim. Let's think about that. Which they're talking about Muslim, Muslim. But as Moors, stay with me, Moors. There's also, as Moors, we're Muslim. Because we're law.
Wrong.
There's also, as Moors, we're Muslim. Because we're law. So when people say, well, Muslim religion, Muslim, what's that? Oh, well, let's just go to the Black Laws Dictionary and let's read the definition of Muslim. Muslim law. Right off the bat, it lets you know Muslim law. One of the two great systems of customary law, which the English found in India. It regulated the life and relations of all Muslims, and parts of it, especially its penal provisions, were applied to both Muslims, Moors, Muslim, and Hindus. Example, extension of law. Once again, we're Muslim. We're law.
Excuse me, sir. What in the doohickey are you talking about? You go into the Black's Law Dictionary and read Muslim law and think because you're a Muslim that makes you law? Sir, you do not deserve to be teaching anybody because all you are doing is confusing people, sending them down the Moorish rabbit hole, and you are one of the teachers that will be ruining people's lives because you are misunderstanding what you're even reading, sir. This is ridiculous.
Once again, we're Muslim. We're law. We're supposed to know the true law of the land, which is the treaties. We got to study, Moors. This is what you're saying, which is truth. And the truth is what's going to set you free. As the government of the United States of America is not in any way sense founded on Christian religion. Get yourselves out of this whole Christianity. I'm a good Christian as a United States citizen because you're not founded on Christian religion. As it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion or tranquility of Muslims, and as said states never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Mohammedan nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from, let's keep going, religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between two countries. Religion is not supposed to come between us. Per the supreme law of the land, the treaties. The Treaty of Tripoli, 1796, religion wasn't supposed to come between us. Article 12. In case of any dispute arising from a violation of any of the articles of this treaty, no appeal should be made to arms, no violence. Nor shall war be declared on any pretext whatsoever. No war. But if the council residing at the place where the dispute shall happen shall not be able to settle the same, and an amicable reference shall be made to the mutual friend of the parties. Friend of the parties. If we can't come up with a mutual agreement, friend demands of the party. The Dey of Algiers. Once again, we don't know who those Deys are. We don't know who those Beys are. They know exactly who you are, Moors.
There he goes again, insinuating that the Beys and the Deys being spoken of in this treaty are Moorish Americans. This dude is so disingenuous, and all he's doing here is miseducating his people, and all that's going to do is further take them down the Moorish rabbit hole, and we see where that leads. All that does is ruin these poor people's lives.
We don't know who those Deys are. We don't know who those Beys are. They know exactly who you are, Moors. The Dey of Algiers. The parties hereby engaging to abide by his decision, and he, by virtue of his signature to this treaty, engages for himself and successors to declare the justice of the case, according to the true interpretation of the treaty, and to use all the means in his power to enforce the observance of the same. That means to keep the peace. He must do anything in his power to keep the peace, because we have a contract from 1796, as well as the Peace and Friendship Treaty between the United States and Morocco of 1787, ratified in 1836. All these treaties tie into each other. Signed and sealed at Tripoli of Barbary on the 3rd day of Junad in the year of Hijriah 1211, corresponding with the 4th day of November 1796. November 4th, 1796. Moors, this is a good read. All treaties are a good read. But you have to put them all into place. If you've been watching and studying the videos, we've been putting the declaration and treaties into effect. Put your puzzle together, Moors. Study. And just because you read it one time doesn't mean you get it. Continue to keep reading it, because you're going to see there's some colonization in your reads. You're going to pick up on some things that usually other people don't pick up on. But please study your declarations. Please study your treaties. And most important, study international law and form your states. Once again, Moors, it's been an honor. I am Mufti, Consul General Kanye Shobey with AMPACT, Elodium Moorish Paradium, Ante, Colorado, a state provincial government within the Moroccan Empire. Look forward to seeing you next time. Peace and love to all my Moors.
Now, as you know, that treaty that he just read was between Tripoli and the United States in 1796. Now, you can read the information that's on the screen and see who were the ruling people in power in Tripoli in that time. It was the Ottoman Turks. Now, we also saw that Bey and Dey are governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. It isn't just individual people running around with Beys and Deys. So this Moorish gentleman who just read this treaty just tried to miseducate people by telling them that the treaty is referring to Moorish Americans, because in the treaty you read titles such as Bey and Dey. Just because Moorish Americans in this day and age have took on the titles of Bey and Dey does not mean that that treaty from 1776 between Tripoli and the United States were talking about Moorish Americans. It wasn't. Bey and Dey were just governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. Now, this is why Moorish Americans are so confused now and run around with this self-entitlement, because they have been fed misinformation. Now, it is always good to read history and read treaties, just like this man said, but it's either this man's comprehension level is very low, or he is just flat out being disingenuous by trying to misrepresent who the treaty is actually talking about. And when he does that, all he is doing is further confusing the people that he is quote unquote trying to educate. Moorish Americans. That treaty, when you see Bey and Dey, it is not referring to you. Just because you guys in today's times took on these appellations and call yourself Bey, Dey, and Ali does not mean when you see your old treaty, it is referring to you. It does not. The Beys and the Deys are nothing more than governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. That is it. Do not let this man further miseducate you. If you don't believe me, do the research yourself. I already put it up once, and I'll put it up again to close out the video so there is no confusion. I'm going to make my statement one more time just to be absolutely clear. Moorish Americans, when you read the peace treaty of 1796 between Tripoli and the United States, when you read that treaty and you see that they make reference to Beys and Deys, they are not making reference to you, Moorish Americans. Beys and Deys were nothing more than governmental titles within the Ottoman Empire. That is it. They are not speaking of you.
Baba